This is Frankly Speaking with Muyiwa Afolabi. Information, education, reformation and transformation. Get ready. Renew your mind. Reset your mindset with insights, ideas, and strategies for everyday performance and success in your career and your business. Yes, it's possible. Yes, you can do it. Of course, you can achieve it. It's all in your mind. Ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves and please receive Muyiwa Afolabi, your practical career success coach. Enjoy.
Hey, good morning, my friends. How are we doing this morning? How was your night? Hope you slept well. This morning, I want to be talking to you. If you're in your late 30s, if you're in your 40s or early 50s, and you schooled in Nigeria, today's topic is for you. I've titled this one, Unlearn the Vices. Unlearn the Vices. I have been thinking, and most times, seriously, I worry about the way most of us are, especially as it has to do with the way we treat ourselves as people and deal with one another. Daily, I see and experience all kinds of cruelty and injustice. I witness oppression and disrespect, hate, abuse, mistreatment, insensitivity, extortion, exploitation, and pure wickedness by, ironically, of people most obsessed and fanatical with religion and activities of faith. Many of us today pray for change, advocate change, clamor for change. We truly want to see change, but sadly, we ourselves don't want to change. We want to remain the way we are, but long to see change in our society and environment. If we as a people constitute and make up our communities and societies, it means real good change can only come with us as individuals changing individually. If we change as individuals, then inevitably we will experience collective change and transformation. I've wondered also what could be responsible for these very prevalent mean ways of dealing amongst us, especially as Nigerians. Everywhere you go, the story is not different. Many people are mean, aggressive, uncaring, self-centered, and unfair to others. With every new law and policy, our first inclination as people is not obedience, but on circumventing or bending the new law. We want to jump queues, break traffic rules, disobey law enforcement officials, operate without licenses and particulars, invent novel, sharp practices, and evade taxes. Most of us just want to take advantage, cheat the state, steal from our commonwealth, and use others. We care less if millions are dying of hunger as long as we and our families are happy and satisfied. Even as custodians of religion and faith, we are more about what we can take from the religious faithfuls, not what we can give to these innocent worshippers. I think many prayers need not be offered to God if many so-called men of God would just put their hands in their pockets and church treasury and give to assist their members. Envy, strife, vain competition, and vainglory is what most of us crave after. You need to just observe two strangers get into a heated argument over a matter, and the statements you begin to hear goes like, "Do you know who I am? Do you know who you're talking to? Am I your mate?" Purr. Low self-esteem, low self-regard, poor self-concept, self-aggrandizement, evident in these kinds of statements. After careful observation and study, I began to understand the likely reasons for these behaviors, mindsets, and attitude, particularly with middle-aged and younger Nigerians. I cast my mind back to our upbringing. If you're around 50 years of age and 10 years below now, you may be able to identify and share my sentiments in the following submission. This age bracket today in Nigeria make up our most powerful and best positioned, relevant individuals managing people, institutions, sectors, and even the publics, and it's quite likely their manner and methods of dealing may be the cascaded, permeating even the younger generation and, as it were, not too educated caliber of this age profile. You see, the way a boy or girl is raised, the handling by parents, teachers, and caregivers can either make or break that person or that generation forever. Many times we wonder and worry about the way we are without really thinking much of how we were raised. Many of us today are just acting and behaving based on how we were raised. It's what we're taught and how we're groomed that we are expressing and passing on to the younger generation today. Casting my mind back to those years in secondary boarding school, I see me, barely 11 years old, excited and glad. I'm now a bigger boy. Primary school all over, now in secondary school. Form 1, I'm glad, I'm excited as I prepare to leave home and leave in school in the hostel with other students in boarding school. I'm no longer a pupil, I'm now a student. My dad excited his son is going to the boarding house. My mom pleased and can't wait to tell every neighbor and friend her son is off to a boarding secondary school. Then the spending begins. School uniform, houseware, Sunday wear, socks, tennis, sandals, all in pairs, books, then provisions, peak milk, carnation milk, Ovaltine, Vitalo, Nasco cornflakes, Gary, sugar, planter, and cabin biscuits. The provisions, then buckets, hoe and cutlass, bowls, bedsheets, blankets, cutlery, toiletries, Joy soap, Cousins Imperial leather, pocket money, then your metal box. Smart choice for a Form 1 student. With padlocks, and you begin to write your name on every item. A good feeling, exciting feeling, off to a boarding secondary school. Then at last, I show up in the boarding secondary school. I see my contemporaries with their parents too, carrying boxes, traveling bags, buckets, brooms, and the search begins by the security and hall masters for contraband and all that. While you're at it, you can't but notice older students looking mean, tough, mischievous, rugged, rough, and weather-beaten. Then your parents leave and you're released into a different world from the familiar, a hard, tough world of gross abuse, intimidation, oppression, bullying, terrorization, extortion, survival of the fittest. And the authorities, teachers, principals, and even parents loving it, approving it, and interpreting psychological, emotional, and moral damage of a young child and teenager good upbringing. They called it discipline. And for 5 years, for some 6 years, you're exposed to a life of physical, mental, and emotional abuse. A fellow student just 1 year ahead of you, called senior something, sometimes can seize your food, your provision, your uniform, your money, beat you thoroughly, and make you serve all kinds of punishment for absolutely nothing, or looking at him funny, and the authorities called it discipline. A Form 2 student can ask a Form 1 student to use a teaspoon to fetch water and fill up a bucket because he wouldn't share his provision. A Form 4 student or a prefect, power drunk, can use all kinds of wires, belts, sticks, cables, and at times the flat side of a cutlass to beat a junior student for not fetching his water or washing his uniform on time, and it was also called discipline. Within the system and environment of learning and education called a boarding secondary school, where students ought to be taught how to be civil, how to love, how to care, respect others, care for others, work together, protect and preserve the esteem, dignity, and confidence of one another, the opposite was prevalent and widely approved by all stakeholders. They called it discipline. In boarding secondary school, your esteem and confidence is replaced with fear and low self-esteem. Generosity and selflessness is traded for extortion and greed. Teamwork, team spirit is traded for segregation, discrimination, and treachery. A mindset of commonwealth and common good traded for greed and self-centeredness. If you go late to the dining hall, your food is stolen or seized by a senior and you can't say or do nothing. It was called discipline. Respect for others traded for abuse of power. A Form 4 student will just wake up and decide to punish all Form 2 students for hours, asking them to pick pin in the sun for hours. Offense, they are growing wings. Fairness and justice traded for victimization and threats, oppression, abuse, fear, harassment, cheating, greed, and wickedness were the norm, approved, sanctioned, and encouraged by the authorities. They called it discipline. I keep wondering if wickedness and discipline are actually synonyms. When you think of those secondary boarding school days, no justice, no protection, no safety, you learn to survive somehow, some way, and somewhere in your mind you begin to think when you become a senior or a prefect, you will, as it were, do your own. My dear friends, those of us who went through the kind of life and treatment as teenagers have been permanently wired to think that's the way life is. If you will carefully observe the way most of us today behave, it is very similar to how we were trained and raised as teenagers back in the days in boarding secondary school. Hence, many of us are sincerely mean, wicked, oppressive, selfish, and greedy. That's what we know. That's how we were raised and developed by those that raised us. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, we left secondary school many decades ago. Sorry we had to go through all that. I submit we're taught wrong. Please, let's forgive and unlearn these vices. We need a better society for our sake and the sake of our children. Let's retrain our minds to do what is right. We live and work in a civil society now, where rights should be upheld and respected, where dignity and respect for all should be a watchword. That brutish boarding house training, in my opinion, damaged most of us seriously. The answers to a better society lie with us becoming better people. Right. Enjoy your day.